Okay, Killers of the Flower Moon, an American Western crime drama directed and produced by Martin Scorsese and who co-wrote the screenplay with Eric Roth, based on the 2017 book of the same name by David Gran. Its plot centers on a series of Oklahoma murders in the Osage Nation during the 1920s, committed after oil was discovered on tribal land. Now, I've never read the book, but I'm somewhat aware of this moment in history, so I was very intrigued by this movie before going in to watch it. This film is an ugly retelling of history, and it's methodically told in a way that immerses you into this period and events. It's beautifully told with so much care and attention to detail in bringing this period to life and just really kind of immersing you into this story. You know, there is just moments that just linger. That you'll have scenes where the camera just lingers on certain moments, whether it be characters having discussions or just sort of people going about their sort of daily routines. The way in just this sort of world and this era and this period was brought to life, it was just so incredibly immersive, just down to the way in which Scorsese shot this film and what he kept in the film as well, which does kind of play into one of the gripes I have, which I will go into in a bit. But just the way in which he shoots so many of these moments, I just found this to be such a mesmerizing and gripping experience. I was immersed, I was gripped from beginning to end, and it's all down to the way in which this era, this period was brought to life, for the way in which the film was shot and edited. This experience for me was a very frustrating and angry experience. Like, this is a very dark, angry, evil part of history. It's a very dark and evil story, and I felt like throughout the entire duration of this movie, so my emotions, I was very angry, I was very frustrated. There are moments where I had to stop myself from shouting at the screen and calling Leonardo DiCaprio's character a fucking prick, because it really stokes those emotions, and that's what this story should do, and they achieve it so well. Leonardo DiCaprio plays Ernest Burkhart, a character that you can easily hate and despise due to what his character does throughout this film, and it's very easy to refer as this character as being one of the slimiest that Leonardo DiCaprio has ever played. But I also felt like this character was very vulnerable. He's a character that's easily led by other people with power, and there is just something very tragic about this character. You could see he loves his wife, you could see he loves his children, and this is where myself as a viewer became really conflicted and frustrated with this character, because he does things that make you hate him, that make you despise him, but you can also see that vulnerability there, and that the love that he does have for his wife and his kids. Leonardo DiCaprio does a fantastic job at creating this very complex and layered character that at first you can just very easily hate and just despise, but if you really kind of dig deeper and you look at how Leonardo DiCaprio is bringing this character to life through his performance, you could see that vulnerability there, and it's very sad and it's very tragic, and it's all done, it's all sold through a fantastic performance by DiCaprio. Robert De Niro as the uncle, William Hale, is also really good here. He's a character that you just really despise and hate. He plays more of just a straight up villain. He's not quite as complex as Ernest. But for me, the real standout when it comes to performances is Lily Gladstone. She is simply fantastic in this film. You believe in her character, you can feel the heartbreak. Her performance is very authentic and natural, and it's as a result of that performance that I just found myself really kind of emotionally caring for this character, as you see sort of her character evolve through the story and where her character ends up. It is so heartbreaking, and it's as a result of her performance. I really dug the score by Robbie Robertson. Now, I'm not really familiar with any of his other work, but I feel like his approach here, which was very stripped back and very percussive, sort of really helped reflect the grittiness of the story which was being told. And it's almost like it sort of becomes this kind of beating heart throughout the film. It's always there in the background, moving the story along, even in its slower moments. And I just felt like this score in this film beautifully reflects the ugly, harsh reality of what is happening within the story, adding to the authenticity of the period and era in which it's set. There are some really brutal moments dotted throughout this film that really made me feel uncomfortable, and it's all down to the way in which Scorsese shoots his movie. It can be a very simple camera setup that's perfectly framed, absorbing the moments and environment in which the characters are in, and it can just be a couple of minutes of just watching a couple of people prepare a murder, and it's how these moments are crafted and set up along with the performances that allow them to be so effective. They made me feel uncomfortable because it felt real. It's not over the top violence, it's brutal, but it's done in a way that's authentic, real and horrifying. So I'm going to delve into some of the minor gripes that I did have with this film, and that is, I'm surprised I'm even going to say it, because for me, I've always been a big fan of seeing a director's true vision to any story that it is they want to tell. I've always preferred directors' cuts, the longer films where you get to see more of these characters, just fleshes these characters out and allows you to be immersed into the story. And that's what the length of this film does really well. It allows you to be immersed into this time period, into this story, and so I really appreciated it for that, and that the fact that Scorsese was allowed to direct, to create the story the way that he wanted to. But I personally think that this story, this film, could have been tightened up just a little bit. I was left wondering, did this story really needed to be 3 hours and 20 minutes? And I found myself at times, through the perspective of an editor, just kind of going, oh, I think that scene could have been trimmed a little bit, or we could have lost that moment a little bit. And so I did find myself in moments, sort of kind of questioning sort of certain scenes and certain moments. But at the same time, it was frustrating because they were doing what I felt like these moments were doing, and that was just really immersing me into this story and into this era. So it's a minor gripe from me, but I could really sort of sense that, yes, this story could have been tightened just a little bit when it comes to the writing and the editing. I was still immersed from beginning to end. This was a very mesmerizing, gripping experience, and it never once took me out the length. I was immersed constantly, even though I was recognizing those kind of minor little kind of gripes that I was having with certain scenes and moments. I could also appreciate what it was trying to do, but I felt like, on reflection, the reason why the length just didn't quite work for me was the lack of momentum and energy going into that third act and throughout the third act, as everything starts to unravel, as the FBI get involved and they start taking in these people for investigation. I just felt like the momentum and energy that this third act really needed wasn't quite there. Don't get me wrong, it's still very satisfying seeing how everything does unravel, but I just feel like the pace of this movie remained very one note, to a point where I was still waiting for the conclusion. It's frustrating because it's such a beautifully told story with so much weight to it, and I felt like they achieved so much, but it was this aspect to it and that kind of sort of that energy and momentum when it comes to the pacing and how I felt it should have sort of escalated going into that third act. it was just really lacking it. One of the very last moments in this film is between Leonardo DiCaprio's character and his wife. And she asks his character a question in which he can't answer. It's a very sad and tragic moment, and it's a simple moment, but it sort of made me angry at the same time. It's made powerful through the performances, but it's the build-up and the build-up to this moment that I felt kind of frustrated me a little bit, because when you have a third act, you are supposed to have this kind of momentum of this build-up of emotions and tension, which I felt like the third act of this film really did lack. So you get this really kind of sad and tragic moment that did hit emotionally, but that's because of the performances. But it's the build-up to that moment that I just felt like really kind of severely lacked emotion and tension in which you would expect to have within the third act. And so yeah, the film just kind of overall, the experience just felt like a series of moments that kind of just played out, then ends, and it just kind of really leaves me feeling sad and angry, and you know, like I felt the heartbreak, and it leaves on it's kind of like I came out to the show and feeling kind of really frustrated and angry. And so in one aspect you could argue, well, the film did its job, and I agree, you know, the story did exactly what the story needed to do, but I felt the writing and editing could have been tightened slightly for it to have a bit more of a focus and a flow, and just inject a bit more momentum and energy into that narrative, especially going into the third act. I feel like the film does somewhat lose focus on certain aspects and elements of the story, and maybe could have been streamlined a little bit more without sacrificing the immersion they already do a fantastic job at creating. It is a bit of a frustrating one for me, because like I said, I enjoy those extended kind of lingering shots of certain scenes and characters exchanges and all of that, but at the same time I felt like for the type of story that they were just trying to tell you, it really did need to be tightened a little. But it does everything a film should do. I was immersed. It felt authentic, it felt real, and I felt like the story was treated with the care and the love and passion that it needed. I do recommend you go to the cinema to watch this. I do think, you know, yes, it's 3 hours and 20 minutes, but I do highly recommend to check this film out. I feel like it's quite an important film, and I feel like it's a film that you really need to watch, especially on the big screen. And, you know, because there is so much love and passion within this film in regards to how it's crafted, and you feel that, and I think to really truly appreciate that, you need to see it on the biggest screen possible with the best sound to really get to sort of just be absorbed and immersed into this story. So yeah, they're my thoughts on Martin Scorsese's latest, and I will be giving Killers of the Flower Moon an 8 out of 10. So yeah, they are my thoughts on Martin Scorsese's latest. What did you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you feel that length? Or was it just right? Do you agree or disagree with anything I've said? Then please let me know in the comments below, and let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. If you want to see future reviews of just some random Welsh geek rambling on, then please hit that subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. My next review will be for It Lives Inside. I'm really looking forward to checking this out. I like the trailers. I'm hoping to hit 200 subscribers by the end of the year. I'm just approaching 180, so thank you to all those that have subscribed. It means the world to me. So yeah, thanks for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'll be catching you guys soon.